Welcome to the program. For half a decade, Russia has waged war in eastern Ukraine. More than 13,000 people killed, over 30,000 injured, and nearly 2 million displaced. From mid-2014 until recently, General Viktor Muzhenko was the commander of Ukraine's armed forces. This including during some of the fiercest fighting of the war, including the Battle of Debaltseve, Ilovaisk, and for the Donetsk International Airport. General Viktor Muzhenko joins us now. General, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
I want to thank you for inviting me, and I'm ready to speak with you.
So, just to start things off, in 2014, you described the state of the Ukrainian military as an army of ruins, Russian generals at the head of the armed forces and security agencies. What state would you say the military is in as you're leaving?
As of today, and at the moment of my dismissal from the position of the Chief of General Staff of Ukraine, the armed forces remain battle-ready and have the ability to carry out all commands in an effort to defend Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. If we compare the state of the Ukrainian army in 2014 and the state of it in 2019, there is no comparison. This is because, in 2014, the Ukrainian army existed as an institution of the state, but to what extent were its capabilities? That's under question. In the spring and summer of 2014, we understood that we were not able to adequately respond to the security situation that the country was in. The army existed as an institution, but its capabilities were very limited. So different numbers were cited that supposedly 5,000 people were ready to carry out commands. But I would like to say that those are just statistics. Realistically, if we look at those who were psychologically ready to fight, then that number would be significantly smaller. But in March 2014, units were created within the armed forces, with numbers reaching 55,000. Out of that number, 30,000 were a special composition of the Air Force, that's the aviation, missile warfare, and 25,000 were the ground forces.
In the past 5 years of Russia's war, there have been some very key battles, and I would like to focus on them. So there's the Battle of Ilovaisk, Debaltseve, and the battle for the Donetsk airport. Those are just a few. There's been many others. What lessons did you personally learn from those battles?
Generally speaking, it's not just this operation, but also a range of other operations which were being carried out in 2014, 2015, and those military operations which were being carried out within the framework of the anti-terrorist operation, and in 2016, 2017, 2018 and 2019, in the framework of the Joint Forces operations. They provided us with a lot of experience, which allowed us to change the training programs and our approaches. We were able, at the end of 2014 and at the start of 2015, to restructure the armed forces and the command structure in order to manage operations not just in the areas where the ATO was, but also other directions with security concerns. The southeast is not the only one. We believe there are at least 5 potentially dangerous directions. Now, when we talk about experience, the active phase of 2014, that was when the battle for Donetsk airport took place. This was the first military operation to liberate the blocked and occupied airport from the Russian proxies and terrorists. It was a successful operation, which helped facilitate a breakthrough in the minds of our servicemen. Everyone began to believe, including soldiers and generals, that the army is capable and the units are capable, that the people are capable of carrying out successful military operations, that the people can be victorious. Now, relating to the Battle of Ilovaisk, I want to say that it was not one of those battles which would have attracted so much attention, if not for the loss of so many men from the Ukrainian side and the intervention of regular Russian troops. This was an operation which was conducted within the framework of a general strategic operation, but unfortunately at the time, perhaps we did not take into account all of those threats, security issues, and especially the intervention of regular Russian troops, which was unexpected. Some people claim that we knew about the Russian intervention beforehand, and I just want to say that I do not know the individuals who knew beforehand about this, And as of today, not a single person has come forward about having the information beforehand. I have a question. If someone knew about this threat, about the likelihood of regular Russian soldiers invading, why did they not share this information with the relevant structures, for example, the intelligence service or the military headquarters, about this threat? But the fact remains that this led to many casualties among the Ukrainian servicemen. I have given many interviews about this and this particular topic, the Battle of Ilovaisk. I don't want to repeat myself. I want to say only one thing. The operation was carried out by the forces of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, with support of detachments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and there are a lot of questions to clarify. And when these questions get sorted out, I'm ready to discuss this issue in any transparent format, be it in the form of a pre-trial investigation or court investigation.
Are you comfortable talking about what your specific role was in the Battle of Ilovaisk and that of your successor, Ruslan Homchak?
Я б зараз не хотів би давати оцінки, скажімо так, і своєї особистої ролі, і ролі генерала Хомчака.
I don't want to provide any assessments on the role of Ruslan Homchak or my role in that operation, and possibly the roles of other commanders that took part and other structures who believed that they had nothing to do with the operation, which is probably not very correct. I'm ready to talk about it in any format, including an open, transparent judicial investigation. The most interesting thing is that I believe that there should not be any limitations on the public's access to the information. It should not be classified. As of now, there is not classified information regarding Ilovaisk. All of the information can be accessed publicly.
So if we talk about the official casualties, the statistics say it's almost 400 Ukrainian soldiers, but independent organizations and investigators say the number is much higher. Can you set the record straight on this number of casualties?
Те, що стосується підрозділів Збройних сил,
regarding the armed forces, regiments and the casualties, the general number of casualties is 154 men and 40 injured. Around the same number are considered missing in action. We have no information on them. Regarding other security agencies, and specifically the units of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, they should have their own registry, and if someone gives other numbers, I have no idea where they're getting the statistics from. We can only use the numbers that are supported by our data and documents. The number 366 has been featured and mentioned, and also claims that up to 1,000 men were killed, but I'm certain that number is definitely not 1,000. Regarding official numbers based on data by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, I have clearly announced them. Regarding the Debaltseve operation, there is a lack of understanding in our society of the meaning and goal of this operation. Everybody believes that only offensive operations are successful, but this was a defensive operation that allowed us to grind down a large number of enemy troops and armor and destroy their offensive potential. The Debaltseve operation destroyed the opportunity for the Russian leadership to enact those military plans they had regarding Ukraine. And I continue to say this, that the Debaltseve operation was successful. This is what I believe to this day, and that is what I have announced numerous times. It is not just my assessment, it is also an assessment made by our partners.
Right, but the Battle of Debaltseve unfolded several months after the Battle of Ilovaisk, and they were both cauldrons. They were both pockets where the Ukrainian military were surrounded, and they were forced to surrender. They were forced to leave, and in Debaltseve, thousands of soldiers left the peace corridor. Why did this happen? It seems that another cauldron happened just months after the first one, the Ilovaisk tragedy. So why did it happen, and what did the Russian forces manage to do in order for it to happen?
Взагалі, визначення котли – це чисто продукт російського, як я називаю, агітпрома.
In general, the term cauldron or pocket is purely the product of Russian disinformation, as I see it. They used it successfully in their information campaign, and it really did influence not only servicemen, but also the society at large. It provoked some protests, and this also swayed the ATO command center and the decisions they made. War cannot give unequivocal answers to all questions, and not all plans are realized as intended. So we learned lessons from Debaltseve and Ilovaisk, and we introduced a number of organizational measures, which concerned the material provisions of the armed forces of Ukraine, as well as psychological preparation of personnel and professional preparation in general. This applied not only to soldiers and sergeants, but commanding officers as well, and the military command. And today, in the armed forces, we are ready to respond to all those threats, which unfortunately Ukraine faces.
Do you personally have any regrets about those battles?
I have regrets, especially in regards to Ilovaisk. It really was the operation that saw our greatest losses. But I do not regret the decisions made in 2014, 2015, and through 2019 by the General Command, by me personally, and by the commanders of military units, because the armed forces executed our primary goal, our primary assignment. They preserved our independence, unfortunately with a temporary loss of some territory. In general, we stopped the Russian aggressor, and in the beginning of 2015, after Debaltseve, the line of separation did not move west, did not move northwest. It has stayed in one place. This is a success. We should understand the difference in the potential of countries like Ukraine and Russia, not only militarily, but also economically and in other areas. And the fact that Ukraine exists today as a sovereign nation, this has been the main assignment which the armed forces of Ukraine fulfilled in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and continue to fulfill in 2019.
You know, we see Western leaders often saying that they're looking to restore relations with Russia. And this week, the French President Emmanuel Macron, in the press, he said that he's looking for, he listed some of the factors on creating more dynamic relationship with Moscow. This is as Russia is waging war in Ukraine. How does that make you feel?
I do not want to comment on the declarations made by politicians. I can give you my personal view. Simply look at history, to assessments made then by politicians. Otto Bismarck once said that any agreement made with Russia isn't worth the paper on which it's written.
I think that's a very strong statement. Let's talk about the ceasefire, or the lack thereof. In a recent statement, Ukraine's new President Zelensky said that an increase in fighting this month suggests that Russia lost control over the militants. He went on to say that he hopes Russia will restore control over the units. What do you make of that?
Я скажу, що всі ті структури, які на сьогоднішній день створені на території так званих ЛНР, ДНР,
I will say that all those structures which have been formed today on the territory of the so-called Luhansk People's Republic and Donetsk People's Republic are Russian structures. They're completely under their control. Regarding the military structures, the system of command, they're all commanded from the territory of the Russian Federation. They're completely tied to the Russian system of military command. Therefore, we can't speak about control. It is about how Russia activates this and other situations. Unfortunately, today, we see an intensification of hostilities along the line of separation. This isn't a matter of losing control. This is all up to the Russian command.
When President Zelensky says that his main goal is to bring about a lasting ceasefire, and in the past 5 years, there hasn't been a day when there's been no fighting and no skirmishes. Is Mr. Zelensky making empty promises when he says that he's going to bring about lasting ceasefire, or are there factors or methods that haven't been tried before?
Взагалі, перемир'я вже оголошувалось кілька десятків разів.
In general, ceasefires have been declared several dozen times, close to 24 times, and none of them achieved their aim. There were various ceasefires, the new school year, in time for the harvest, for holidays and so forth, for Christmas and New Year's Eve. None of these ceasefires lived up to expectations because they were not adhered to, and they were violated, first of all, by the opposite side. Ukrainian units should have the right to react adequately when their lives are in danger or their health, and in general, they must respond appropriately to fire from the enemy. Only effective fire in response is the most constraining and effective means of maintaining a ceasefire.
After speaking with a lot of Ukrainian soldiers and some commanders, not a lot, I've noticed that and also some of the feedback that I've received from Canadian and American trainers here in Ukraine. They've said that in order for the changes to happen within the Ukrainian military, the commander's mentality needs to change. And that includes seeing every soldier's life as very valuable. And the last year, the chairman of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Veterans Affairs said almost 1,000 military personnel committed suicide. What is the approach at the moment with dealing with suicide and suicide prevention among serving military personnel and veterans?
Знаєте, любий конфлікт, він за собою тягне.
You know, any conflict leads to certain psychological disorders. And it's not just the Ukrainian military that is affected. It's not just Ukrainian soldiers. This is typical almost for every conflict and every army in the world. There is a post-conflict period, and there are indeed serious problems during rehabilitation, both medical and especially psychological rehabilitation for servicemen. Much has already been done. Military psychologists have been hired. There are also corresponding psychological centers. Medical centers of the Defense Ministry carries out relevant measures, including psychological rehabilitation. But unfortunately, this problem is now so extensive that the number of activities being carried out today, as well as the institutions and structures that deal with these issues, is obviously not enough to solve this problem. There's still a lot of work to do. I think there's a broad perspective here. We need to realistically assess this situation, as well as our possibilities, and plan clear approaches to solving this issue, especially the issue of psychological rehabilitation.
Вирішення цієї проблеми, особливо психологічної реабілітації.
But do you agree that the mentality should change within the military?
Задають часто запитання,
They often ask me how many sectors have been improved and about the NATO standards which have been implemented by the Defense Ministry and so on. Several hundred standards have been introduced, about 600 standards. They are connected with certain procedures. These are the issues of technical standards, as well as those connected with training our personnel and making decisions. But the main problem is changing our mentality. We still have to do a lot here. I think it will take years.
Can you talk a little bit about the legacy that you're going to leave behind?
Ну, в двох словах, я думаю, що не можна, скажімо, описати стан Збройних сил. Я вже сказав про те, що Збройні сили на сьогодні достатньо.
In two words, I think that it is impossible to describe the state of the armed forces. I have already said that the armed forces have been equipped enough, though we still have a number of problems. These are the problems with providing our servicemen with new and modernized weapons. It is especially connected with capabilities of the air forces and air defense units, as well as increasing combat capabilities of radio engineering troops. The issue of naval forces requires serious attention. We have certain plans, but the structure we created is effective enough and ready for performing the duties it has. The main one is to protect the territorial integrity and independence of Ukraine. The armed forces are now set to perform this task. We also created a strong system of reservists, as well as the procedure to train them. There are problems connected with training our military in terms of infrastructure. I'm talking about the deployment of military personnel and the availability of equipped permanent bases. This is still a problem. And then there's a problem with housing. These are social issues. As for the combat capabilities, a lot has already been done, and there are certain plans to increase these capabilities. I would like the leadership to follow these plans, maybe making slight changes in tactics, but not turning from these directions strategically.
What are your plans for the future?
I am on vacation now. After my holiday, I will decide what to do next.
Thank you very much, General. It was an honor to have you here in the studio.
Thank you for your interesting questions, and all the best.
In the studio today, we were joined by General Viktor Muzhenko, who was the commander of Ukraine's armed forces. You're watching UATV.